The bank lobby went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Robert Hayes, age 71, stood at the withdrawal counter of First National Bank in Waterloo, Iowa. Tuesday morning, November 2nd, 2024. He wore faded overalls with paint stains from the 1990s, a plaid shirt with frayed collar, boots with cracked leather. His hands were gnarled from decades of farm work, his face deeply lined from sun exposure. He just said to the teller, "I want to withdraw $1 million. Cash." The teller, a young woman named Sarah, aged 24, blinked. "I'm sorry, sir. Did you say 1 million? "Yes, cash. Today. How long will that take?" Sarah looked to her supervisor. Her supervisor walked over. "Sir, we don't typically process cash withdrawals of that size. May I ask what this is for?" "Buying land. Seller wants cash. I want cash. I have the money. I want to withdraw it." Standing 10 feet away, waiting in line, was Marcus Thornton, age 48, CEO of Thornton Industries, worth approximately $340 million, wearing a $4,200 suit, $800 shoes, Rolex worth $28,000. Marcus was at the bank to deposit a $1.4 million check from a recent business deal. Marcus heard the old farmer's request and laughed, not quietly, a genuine, audible laugh that carried across the lobby. The supervisor asked Robert, "Sir, I need to verify you have funds available for this withdrawal. What's your account number?" Robert provided it. The supervisor checked. Her expression changed from skeptical to shocked. "Mr. Hayes, I see you have sufficient funds. But a withdrawal this large requires manager approval and advance notice for cash preparation. Can you wait while I get the branch manager?" "I'll wait." Marcus, still amused, approached Robert while the supervisor left. "Excuse me, friend, I couldn't help but overhear. You're withdrawing $1 million cash from this bank?" Robert looked at Marcus, noted the expensive suit, the Rolex, the condescending smile. "Yes. No offense, but you don't look like someone who has $1 million. What are you really doing? Some kind of prank? YouTube stunt? I have the money. I'm withdrawing it. No prank." Marcus's smile widened. "Right. And I'm sure you earned it farming corn. Let me guess. You won the lottery? Inheritance from a rich relative?" Robert's expression remained neutral. "I farmed, saved, made investments. Now I have money I want to withdraw." Marcus found this hilarious. "You farmed your way to $1 million cash. Sure, I've made hundreds of millions in manufacturing, and I still think $1 million cash is a significant amount. But you, a farmer in overalls, just happened to save up $1 million. That's adorable." Robert didn't respond, just waited. The branch manager arrived. Dan Fletcher, age 56, had been managing this branch for 18 years. Knew most of his large account holders personally. He recognized Robert immediately. "Mr. Hayes, good to see you. I understand you want to make a large withdrawal." $1 million. Cash. For a land purchase. Dan nodded. "We can accommodate that. I'll need to order the cash. That amount isn't kept on site for security reasons. Can you come back Thursday? We'll have it ready by noon." "Thursday works," Dan continued. "Mr. Hayes, I should mention for your security, we typically recommend wire transfers for large transactions. Cash presents risks, theft, loss, counting errors. Are you certain the seller won't accept a wire transfer or cashier's check?" "He wants cash. I'm paying cash." "Understood. We'll prepare 1 million in hundreds. That's 10,000 bills, roughly 22 pounds. I'll have it ready Thursday at noon." Marcus, listening to this exchange, was dumbfounded. The bank manager was taking this seriously. This old farmer actually had $1 million. After Robert left, Marcus approached Dan. "Dan, I've banked here for 12 years. Who is that old man? Does he actually have $1 million?" Dan, professional discretion warring with surprise at Marcus's tone, said carefully, I can't discuss specific account details, but yes, Mr. Hayes has sufficient funds for the withdrawal he requested. How does a farmer have $1 million in cash? I couldn't say, but he's been a customer here since 1974, 50 years. I've personally handled his accounts for 18 years. He's one of our most financially stable customers. Marcus was intrigued, also slightly embarrassed. He'd openly mocked someone who apparently had legitimate wealth. What's his story? You'd have to ask him, but I will say, Robert Hayes is the wealthiest farmer in Black Hawk County, probably wealthiest in several counties, and almost nobody knows it because he doesn't act like it. Marcus left the bank thinking about the encounter. An old farmer in worn overalls with $1 million cash. Marcus had assumed poverty based on appearance, been completely wrong. That evening Marcus did research, asked around, learned that Robert Hayes farmed 280 acres south of Waterloo. Small operation by modern standards. Old equipment. Modest house. Nothing impressive visible from the road. But people who knew Robert told different stories. Robert's loaded. Must have 5 million, maybe more. Saved every penny for 50 years. Marcus was fascinated. How does someone farming 280 acres accumulate millions? He decided to find out. On Thursday, Marcus returned to the bank at 11:50 a.m., waited in his car outside. At 11:58, Robert arrived in a 1996 Chevy Silverado with rust on the fenders and 312,000 miles on the odometer. Robert went inside. Emerged 20 minutes later, carrying a large black duffel bag. Heavy. Marcus watched as Robert loaded it into the truck bed, covered it with a tarp, drove away. $1 million in the back of a 28-year-old truck, driven by a 71-year-old farmer who looked like he couldn't afford lunch. Marcus followed. Not close, didn't want to be creepy, but followed. Robert drove 12 miles south, turned onto a gravel road, drove 3 more miles, turned into a farm driveway. Marcus drove past, circled back, parked a quarter-mile away, watched through binoculars. He had them for bird-watching, legitimate hobby. Robert's farm, small house, maybe 1,400 square feet, built in the 1960s. Machine shed, old but maintained. Grain bin, barn. Nothing impressive, nothing suggesting wealth. But Robert had just carried $1 million cash into that house. Marcus's curiosity overwhelmed his judgment. He drove to the farm, knocked on the door. Robert answered, saw Marcus. "You're the man from the bank, the one who laughed at me." "Yes, I apologize for that. I made assumptions. I was wrong." "What do you want?" "I want to know how you did it. How does someone farming 280 acres save $1 million? I've made hundreds of millions in business, and even I think that's impressive." Robert studied Marcus. The expensive suit, the Rolex, the arrogance barely concealed beneath curiosity. "Why do you care?" "Because I've spent my life chasing wealth, built a company, made millions, but I still chase. You clearly stopped chasing. You have enough. I want to know how you got there." Robert considered. "Come in. I'll tell you. But you have to listen to the whole story." They sat in Robert's modest kitchen, formica table from the 1980s, linoleum floor, nothing fancy. Robert made coffee, generic store brand, and began. "I bought this farm in 1974. I was 21 years old, had saved $8,000 working construction for 3 years. The farm was 280 acres, selling for $186,000. Owner financed it. I put down the $8,000, agreed to pay him directly over 20 years at 7.8%. My payment was $1,400 a month, high for a young guy, but I made it work. Farmed during growing season, worked construction in winter. First few years were brutal. Made maybe $12,000 farming, $8,000 construction. After the land payment, I had maybe $4,000 for living expenses. I lived in this house. It came with the farm, ate cheap food, wore hand-me-down clothes." Marcus interrupted. When did you pay off the farm? 1982. 8 years instead of 20. I paid extra whenever possible. By 1982, I owned 280 acres free and clear. I was 29 years old. After that, I had a choice. I could expand, buy more land, borrow money, grow the operation, or I could stay small and save money. I chose saving. Between 1982 and 1990, I saved about $16,000 per year. Not much, but it added up. By 1990, I had $128,000 saved. Then the 1990s farm crisis hit some areas hard. Land prices dropped. I bought 160 acres in 1992 for $920 per acre, $147,200 total, paid cash, now owned 440 acres. Kept farming, kept saving. By 2000, had another $180,000 saved. Bought 240 acres for $1,450 per acre, $348,000 total. Put down $180,000, financed $168,000, paid it off in 4 years. By 2005, owned 680 acres free and clear, started reducing farming. I was 52. Didn't need to work as hard. Sold off 400 acres in 2007 for $3,100 per acre, while $240,000. After capital gains tax, netted about $980,000. Invested that money conservatively, municipal bonds, dividend stocks, some real estate. Between 2007 and 2024, that $980,000 grew to approximately $2.4 million. Add my remaining 280 acres worth about $1.2 million, plus another $400,000 in savings and other assets. Total net worth today, roughly $4 million. Marcus was stunned. You're worth $4 million? Approximately. And you're withdrawing $1 million to buy land? No, to give to my granddaughter. She's buying a farm, needs cash. I'm giving it to her. You're giving away $1 million? I'm 71. Wife died in 2019. Kids don't want the farm. Granddaughter does. I'm helping her get started. Same way someone helped me in 1974 with owner financing. Marcus sat back. I've spent 25 years chasing wealth, made $340 million, but I'm miserable. Divorced twice, kids barely speak to me, work 80 hours a week. You farmed 280 acres and retired at 52 with $4 million and peace of mind. How? Robert smiled. Because I knew enough was enough. You don't. You made $340 million and you're still chasing. I made $4 million and stopped. That's the difference. The rich man laughed at the old farmer withdrawing $1 million cash, then got shocked when he learned the farmer was worth $4 million and giving money away, while the rich man worth $340 million was miserable and alone. Sometimes wealth isn't about the amount. It's about knowing when to stop chasing. But the story of how Robert Hayes built $4 million in wealth while farming 280 acres, and how Marcus Thornton built $340 million while destroying his life, deserves much deeper examination, because the contrast between these two men reveals fundamental truths about wealth, satisfaction, and human nature. Let's start with Robert's journey in granular detail. Robert Hayes, The Patient Accumulator, 1974-2024. Robert was born in 1953 in rural Iowa. His father was a tenant farmer, rented land, owned nothing, struggled constantly. Robert watched his father work 70-hour weeks for 40 years and retire with $12,000 in savings. That shaped Robert's worldview. Renting meant never getting ahead. Owning meant security. At age 18, Robert started working construction, union job, good pay for 1971, $8.40 per hour. He worked 50 hours per week, lived in a tiny apartment for $120 per month, ate beans and rice, saved obsessively. 3 years of this, 1971-1974, saved $8,000 total. At 21, he found the 280-acre farm for sale. Owner was retiring, needed $186,000. Robert offered $8,000 down, $178,000 owner financed at 7.8% over 20 years. Monthly payment, $1,400. The owner accepted. Most banks wouldn't have loaned to a 21-year-old construction worker with no farming experience, but the owner saw something in Robert: hunger, determination, work ethic. May 1974. Robert took possession. He was 21 years old, owned nothing but 280 acres of debt and a dream. Years 1 to 8, 1974, 1982. The brutal grind. Robert's life for those first 8 years followed a pattern. Farm spring through fall, construction work winter. His farming income those first years was minimal. 1974, grossed $18,400 from 280 acres. After operating costs, netted maybe $6,000. His construction income in winters, $7,200 working November through March at reduced hours. Total annual income, $13,200. Land payment, $16,800 annually. He was $3,600 short every year. How did he survive? 3 ways. First, he lived brutally cheap. His house, the old farmhouse that came with the property, had no air conditioning, minimal heat, needed repairs Robert couldn't afford. He ate potatoes, beans, eggs, occasional chicken. His clothing came from Goodwill. His truck was a 1968 Ford F-100 he'd bought for $600. Second, he worked extra. Construction overtime paid time and a half. Robert worked every overtime shift available. Christmas Eve, he worked. New Year's Day, he worked. 60-hour weeks in winter became the norm. That extra income, maybe $4,000, $5,000 additional, covered the shortfall. Third, he didn't spend on anything except necessities. No TV, couldn't afford cable. No eating out, no vacations, no hobbies that cost money. His entire life was work, pay debt, repeat. Those 8 years aged Robert. He was 21 in 1974, looked 40 by 1982, grey hair at 28, deep wrinkles from sun exposure and stress, calloused hands from physical labor. But by August 1982, Robert made his final payment to the original owner, $178,000 paid in 8 years instead of 20. He owned 280 acres free and clear. Age 29. No debt. Most farmers at 29 were just starting, still renting, still accumulating debt. Robert was debt-free with land ownership. Years 9 to 18. 1982-1992, the accumulation phase. With no land payment, Robert's financial situation transformed overnight. His farming income by 1982, $28,000 gross, $14,000 net. His winter construction, $9,000. Total income, $23,000. No land payment. Living expenses maybe $7,000 annually. He still lived cheap by habit. Savings, $16,000 per year. He maintained this for 10 years, 1982-1992. Saved $160,000 total. Why didn't he expand? His neighbors were buying land, borrowing money, growing operations. The prevailing wisdom, get big or get out. Robert ignored it. I have enough land to make a living. Why borrow money to farm more land? What's the upside? His neighbors thought he lacked ambition. Robert could farm 1,000 acres if he wanted. He's just lazy. But Robert understood something they didn't. Debt transforms you from farmer to debtor. With no debt, a bad year means lower income. With debt, a bad year means foreclosure. The 1980s farm crisis proved Robert right. Between 1982 and 1987, 6 of Robert's neighbors lost their farms to foreclosure. They'd expanded aggressively in the late 1970s, borrowed at high rates, couldn't survive when grain prices crashed and interest rates spiked. Robert survived easily. No debt meant low stress. Bad years meant he saved less. Good years meant he saved more. But every year he survived and added to his nest egg. By 1992, Robert had $128,000 in cash savings. Land prices had crashed during the crisis, now recovering slowly. A neighbor was selling 160 acres. Estate sale. Owner died. Heirs wanted it gone quickly. Asking price $100 per acre, $176,000. Robert offered $920 per acre cash, $147 to $200 total. They accepted, cash offer, quick close, no contingencies. Robert paid cash, now owned 440 acres, free and clear, age 39. Years, 1933, 1992, 2007. The prosperity phase. The 1990s and early 2000s were good for Robert. Grain prices stable, expenses manageable, yields improving with better genetics and technology. Robert's farming income from 440 acres averaged $38,000 net annually through the 1990s. Winter construction, $11,000. Total, $49,000 per year. Living expenses, still minimal, $9,000 annually. Savings, $40,000 per year. This continued from 1992 to 2000. 8 years. Total saved, $320,000. Added to his existing small cash reserve, Robert had approximately $340,000 by year 2000. In 2001, another opportunity, a retiring farmer selling 240 acres for $1,450 per acre, $348,000 total. Robert offered $1,380 per acre for quick cash close, $330 or $200. Seller countered $1,420 per acre, $340,800. Robert accepted. Put down $180,000 cash, financed $16,800 at 6.2% over 10 years. Now Robert owned 680 acres, but he also had debt again, first time since 1982. Monthly payment, $1,820. Annual, $21,840. Robert didn't like having debt. Paid it off in 4 years, 2001 to 2005, by paying triple the minimum payment. By 2005, owned 680 acres free and clear. But Robert was 52. He'd farmed for 31 years. He was tired. His wife Martha, whom he'd married in 1978, suggested, "Robert, you've worked since you were 18. You're 52. We have no debt and 680 acres. Maybe it's time to slow down." Robert agreed. In 2007, he sold 400 acres for $3,100 per acre, $240,000 gross. After capital gains tax, 15% federal on the gain plus some state tax, he netted approximately $980,000. That $980,000 became Robert's investment portfolio. He worked with a conservative financial advisor. Strategy: 60% municipal bonds, tax-free income, 30% dividend stocks, 10% REITs. Between 2007 and 2024, 17 years, that $980,000 grew to approximately $2.4 million through dividends, interest, and modest appreciation. Meanwhile, Robert kept farming his remaining 280 acres, the original farm. But he scaled back, hired a young farmer to do the physical work. Robert handled management and marketing. His income from farming, $35,000 annually. His investment income, $64,000 annually. Total, $99,000 per year. Living expenses, still minimal. $18,000 annually by 2024 standards. Savings, $81,000 per year. From 2007 to 2024, 17 years of saving $81,000 annually. Total, $1,377,000 added to his portfolio. By November 2024, Robert's net worth, investment portfolio, 2.4 Mertz original, plus 1.4 Mertz additions at 3.8 Mastens, land value, 280 acres at 4,200 acre as 1. 176 M, cash and other assets, $400,000. Total, approximately $5.4 million. Robert was worth $5.4 million, not the $4 million he'd told Marcus. Robert understated his wealth by habit, and he'd built it farming 280 acres, never expanded beyond 680 acres maximum. Never chased growth, just farmed steadily, saved consistently, lived cheaply. Marcus Thornton, The Miserable Millionaire, 1977-2024. Now let's examine Marcus's story, the man who laughed at Robert, who built $340 million, who was profoundly unhappy. Marcus was born in 1976 to upper-middle-class parents. Father was an engineer, mother a teacher. Comfortable childhood, good schools. Marcus was smart, ambitious, competitive. He graduated University of Iowa in 1998 with a degree in business. Started working at a manufacturing company as a junior analyst. Salary, $38,000. Marcus was unsatisfied immediately. $38,000 felt like nothing. He wanted wealth, real wealth. In 2001, age 25, Marcus quit to start his own manufacturing business, Thornton Industries, focused on precision metal parts for agricultural equipment. He borrowed $180,000 from his parents, maxed out credit cards for another $40,000, rented a small facility, bought used equipment, hired 3 employees. First year, grossed $340,000, netted $28,000 after expenses and debt service. Not great, but survived. Second year grossed $680,000, netted $94,000, growing. Third year grossed $1.2 million, netted $186,000, real traction. Marcus was obsessed, worked 90-hour weeks, barely slept, lived in his office some nights, got engaged in 2002, married in 2003. His wife Sarah complained, "Marcus, you're never home. We're married, but I'm alone." Marcus promised to slow down. Didn't, couldn't. The business was growing, needed attention, demanded everything. 2004, gross revenue $2.1 million, net $340,000. 2005, gross revenue $3.8 million, net $640,000. 2006, gross revenue $6.4 million, net $1.1 million. Marcus was making real money, but also destroying his marriage. Sarah filed for divorce in 2007, said, "I married you, not your business, but your business is all you care about." Divorce cost Marcus $400,000 settlement plus ongoing alimony. He was angry, felt Sarah was punishing his success. He doubled down on business, expanded aggressively, borrowed $2 million to build a new facility, buy modern equipment. 2008, gross revenue $11.2 million, net $1.8 million. 2009, gross revenue $14.6 million, net $2.4 million. Marcus was becoming wealthy. Met second wife Michelle in 2010. She was 32, he was 34. Married in 2011, had a son in 2012. But Marcus didn't change. Still worked 80-plus hours weekly. Michelle complained. Marcus promised, didn't deliver. 2012, gross revenue $22 million, net $3.8 million. 2013, gross revenue $31 million, net $5.2 million. Marcus's personal wealth was growing rapidly. By 2014, his net worth exceeded $18 million. Michelle filed for divorce in 2015. "Marcus, you have a son. He's 3 years old. He doesn't know you. You're at the office before he wakes up and home after he's asleep. I'm raising him alone. What's the point of being married?" Second divorce cost Marcus $2.8 million settlement plus child support. Marcus was furious. 2 marriages destroyed by success. He blamed his ex-wives. "They couldn't handle my ambition, wanted me to be mediocre." Never occurred to Marcus that maybe he was the problem, that maybe prioritizing wealth over family was a choice with consequences. 2016-2024, continued growth. Marcus never remarried, had brief relationships that ended when women realized he prioritized work over everything. By 2024, Thornton Industries grossed $127 million annually. Marcus's ownership stake worth approximately $340 million. He was wealthy. Objectively, tremendously successful. But at age 48, Marcus was alone. His son from his second marriage barely spoke to him. "Dad, you missed every birthday, every school event, every moment. Why would I want a relationship now?" His first wife remarried happily, wanted nothing to do with Marcus. His second wife remarried, moved across the country, minimized Marcus's access to his son. Marcus's days: work 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., eat expensive dinners alone, sleep in an expensive empty house, repeat. Weekends: work. Holidays: work. He had $340 million and profound loneliness. The contrast. When Marcus encountered Robert at the bank, he saw an old farmer in worn overalls withdrawing $1 million cash, assumed poverty, laughed, then learned Robert was worth $5.4 million built from farming 280 acres. More shocking, Robert was happy. At 71, widowed but at peace, surrounded by family who loved him, giving money away to his granddaughter. Marcus, at 48, had $340 million but was miserable. No family, no peace, just wealth and emptiness. After Robert explained his story, Marcus asked, "How do you have peace? I have 340 million and I'm miserable. You have 5 million and you're content. What's the difference?" Robert thought carefully. "Marcus, you're chasing a finish line that keeps moving. You made your first million and it wasn't enough. Made 10 million, still not enough. Made 100 million, still not enough. Now 340 million, still not enough. When does enough become enough?" "I don't know. Maybe 500 million? "No. You'll get there and want 1 billion. There's no amount that will satisfy you because you're chasing wealth itself, not what wealth provides." "What does wealth provide?" "Security, freedom, options. I achieved those with 4 million. You achieved those with 10 million. Everything past 10 million for you was just scorekeeping. And scorekeeping is a game you can never win because someone always has more." Marcus had no response. Robert continued, "I knew enough was enough in 2007. I was 54, had sold land, had 1 million invested, had enough to live comfortably forever. I could have kept expanding, kept buying land, kept growing. But why? What would I gain? More money I didn't need. What would I lose? Time, peace, enjoyment. So you just stopped." "I didn't stop working. I still farm, but I stopped chasing growth. I work because I enjoy it, not because I need money. That's the difference." Marcus sat in silence. His entire adult life had been chasing the next million, the next deal, the next growth target. Robert had stopped chasing in his 50s. Who was richer? "What should I do?" Marcus asked. "I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I did. I decided what enough looked like. Enough money to live comfortably, enough land to farm enjoyably, enough work to stay engaged but not overwhelmed. Once I hit enough, I stopped chasing, started enjoying. But I've sacrificed everything for this wealth, 2 marriages, relationship with my son, my health. If I stop now, was it all for nothing?" That's the trap, Marcus. Sunk cost fallacy. You sacrificed everything chasing wealth. Now you have wealth but nothing else. You can't get back what you lost, but you can stop losing more. You can decide today that enough is enough, or you can keep chasing and lose the rest of your life too. Marcus left Robert's house that evening thinking deeply. He'd spent 23 years building $340 million, lost 2 wives, alienated his son, destroyed his health, sacrificed every relationship. Robert spent 50 years building $5.4 million, had a happy marriage, ended only by his wife's death from natural causes, had children and grandchildren who loved him, had peace. Who was wealthier? The next day, Friday, November 3rd, 2024, Marcus made a decision. He called his senior management team. "I'm stepping back, promoting Jennifer to CEO effective immediately. I'll remain chairman, but I'm not running day-to-day operations anymore." His team was shocked. Marcus had never delegated, never trusted anyone else. This was unprecedented. "Why?" Jennifer asked. "Because I met a farmer worth 5 million who's happier than I am worth 340 million. And I realized I've been chasing the wrong thing." Marcus didn't quit working entirely, but he went from 80 hours per week to 20. He started seeing a therapist, started rebuilding relationships, called his son. "I know I've been a terrible father. I can't undo that. But I want to try being better from now on." His son was skeptical, but agreed to try. Marcus called his second ex-wife. "Michelle, I want to be involved in our son's life. I know I missed everything. I want to stop missing things." She was protective, but allowed supervised visits. Marcus started attending his son's soccer games. awkward at first. 13-year-old son barely acknowledged him, but Marcus kept showing up, kept trying. By January 2025, Marcus had attended 8 soccer games, 3 school events, taken his son to dinner 4 times. Small steps, not redemption, but movement in the right direction. He also started donating money, gave $10 million to establish agricultural education scholarships for low-income students. Named it the Robert Hayes Agricultural Scholarship Fund, named after the farmer who taught him what wealth really meant. Robert learned about the scholarship when Marcus called him in February 2025. "Robert, I wanted you to know, I'm funding $10 million in scholarships for young farmers, named after you. You taught me more in 2 hours than 23 years of chasing money ever did." Robert was touched. "Marcus, you didn't need to do that." "I did, because you showed me that wealth without wisdom is just numbers. Thank you." The old farmer who withdrew $1 million cash shocked the rich man who'd laughed at him, not with the withdrawal itself, but with the lesson that followed. Knowing when enough is worth more than any amount of money. Robert Hayes built $5, $4 million and stopped chasing, found peace. Marcus Thornton built $340 million and couldn't stop chasing, found misery. One man knew enough, the other never learned. Sometimes the poorest-looking person is the richest. Sometimes the richest-looking person is the poorest. And sometimes $1 million in a duffel bag teaches lessons worth more than 340 million ever could. But the story doesn't end with Marcus's revelation and attempted redemption. Because there's more to understand about both men, about the $1 million withdrawal, and about what happened next. The granddaughter's story. Robert's granddaughter, Emma Hayes, was 26 in November 2024. She'd grown up watching her grandfather farm, learned to love agriculture, studied agronomy at Iowa State. Unlike Robert's own children, who'd become a lawyer and an accountant and moved to cities, Emma wanted to farm. Problem: land was expensive. $4,000, $5,000 per acre. Emma had saved $85,000 over 5 years working as a farm manager, enough for a down payment on maybe 80 acres, not enough to start a real operation. She needed at minimum 240 acres to be viable. At $4,200 per acre, that's $1,008,000. With $85,000 down, she'd need to finance $923,000. Banks were skeptical. "Emma, you're 26 with no ownership history. That's a lot of debt for a beginning farmer." Emma was discouraged. She told Robert, "Grandpa, I want to farm like you did. But you started in 1974 when land was cheap. Today I can't afford to start." Robert understood. He'd started with $186,000 total for 280 acres, roughly $664 per acre. Emma faced $4,200 per acre, 6 times more expensive adjusted for inflation. Robert thought about his situation. He was 71, widowed, had more money than he'd ever spend. His children were financially secure, didn't need inheritance. Emma was the one who shared his passion for farming. "Emma, what if you had cash? How much do you need?" Realistically, $1 million. That buys 240 acres with cash, plus leaves money for equipment and operating expenses. "I'll give you $1 million. Emma was stunned. "Grandpa, I can't." "You can. I have more than I need. You have a passion, I understand. The seller wants cash. You get cash. Consider it your inheritance early." That's why Robert withdrew $1 million cash on Thursday, November 2nd, 2024. Not for himself, for Emma. To help her start the way someone helped him in 1974 with owner financing, Emma bought 240 acres in Madison County for $4,100 per acre, $984,000 cash, had $16,000 remaining for initial operating expenses. Robert also gave her his old equipment, a 1998 John Deere 7810 and a 2003 8410, both paid for, both functional. Emma started farming spring 2025. Young, inexperienced, but determined, like her grandfather 50 years earlier. By December 2025, Emma had completed one growing season. Corn yielded 201 bushels per acre on her 240 acres. At 435, corn grossed $209,844. After all expenses, $140,400. Netted $67,444 her first year. Not great, but profitable. More importantly, sustainable. She owned the land. No debt, no pressure. Could learn, grow, improve. Emma called Robert in December 2025. "Grandpa, I netted $67,000 my first year. It's not much, but Emma, I netted $6,000 my first year. You're doing better than I did. Keep going." Robert's gift to Emma wasn't just money, it was opportunity. The chance to start farming with the same advantages he'd had. Ownership, no debt, freedom to learn. The transformation of Marcus Thornton. Marcus's life changed dramatically between November 2024 and December 2025. Let's examine month by month. November 2024. The decision. After meeting Robert, Marcus reduced his work hours from 80 per week to 20, delegated day-to-day operations to his COO, Jennifer Martinez. Focused on strategic decisions only, his management team was skeptical. "Marcus has never delegated. This won't last." But Marcus was committed. He'd seen what 50 years of chasing did to relationships. Didn't want to waste the rest of his life. December 2024. First steps. Marcus attended his son's school winter concert, first school event he'd attended in years. His son Noah, age 13, saw him in the audience. Was shocked his father showed up. After the concert, Noah approached cautiously. "Dad, you came." "I did. You were great." "You've never come before." "I know. I'm sorry. I want to change that." Noah was guarded. 13 years of absent father doesn't heal with one concert, but it was a start. Marcus also started therapy. Therapist Dr. Patricia Kahn asked probing questions. "Why did you sacrifice everything for wealth?" Marcus struggled to answer. "I thought wealth would make me happy, make me important. Prove I was successful." "Did it?" "No, I'm worth $340 million and I'm miserable." "Why are you miserable?" "Because I have nobody, no family, no friends, just employees and business associates." "What do you want?" "I want what Robert Hayes has. Peace. Family. Enough." January 2025. Rebuilding. Marcus established a regular schedule with Noah. Dinner every Tuesday, alternating weekends. Noah's mother Michelle supervised initially. Didn't trust Marcus to show up consistently. First 2 dinners, Noah barely spoke. Just answered questions with single words. Third dinner, Noah opened up slightly. "Dad, why are you doing this now? You didn't care before." Marcus was honest. "I met an old farmer who taught me I'd been chasing the wrong things. Money doesn't matter if you have nobody to share life with. You chose money over me." "I did. I was wrong. I can't undo that, but I can stop making the same mistake." Marcus also started donating significant money. January 2025, $10 million to the Agricultural Scholarship Fund. February, $5 million to children's hospitals. March, $3 million to addiction recovery programs. His accountant objected. "Marcus, you're giving away millions. This will impact your net worth." "Good. I have too much. Someone else should benefit." By June 2025, Marcus had donated $27 million. His net worth dropped from $340 million to $313 million. He felt better than ever. July 2025. Breakthrough. Marcus took Noah on a week-long vacation. Just the 2 of them. First vacation Marcus had taken in 8 years. First father-son trip ever. They went to Colorado, hiked, fished, talked. Marcus told stories about building his business. Noah told stories about school, friends, soccer. One evening, sitting by a campfire, Noah said, "Dad, I think I forgive you." Marcus cried. 50 years old, sitting by a fire with his 13-year-old son, crying because he'd finally heard the words he needed. "Thank you," Marcus said. I don't deserve it, but thank you. You're trying now. That matters. August-December 2025. New life. Marcus continued reducing business involvement. By August, worked only 15 hours per week, spent remaining time with Noah, volunteering, reading, hiking. His net worth continued dropping, not from business losses, but from donations. By December 2025, net worth $286 million after donating $54 million total throughout the year. But Marcus was happier than he'd been in 25 years, had relationship with his son, had purpose beyond wealth, had peace. In December 2025, Marcus drove to Robert's farm, knocked on the door. Robert answered, "Marcus, good to see you." "Robert, I wanted to thank you again. A year ago, you taught me lessons I needed. I've been implementing them. How's it going? I've reduced my work hours, rebuilt relationship with my son, donated $54 million, and I'm happier than I've ever been. My net worth is dropping, but my life is improving." Robert smiled. "That's the trade. Less wealth, more life. You're learning." They sat in Robert's kitchen, drank coffee, talked for 2 hours. Two men who'd taken opposite paths to similar destinations. Marcus had chased wealth, found misery, now pursuing contentment. Robert had pursued enough, found contentment, now giving wealth away. "Robert, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Do you regret anything about your life?" Robert thought carefully. "I regret that Martha died before we could enjoy more retirement together. She died in 2019. I'd planned to travel with her, see things we'd always wanted to see. Waited too long. She got sick, cancer, gone in 6 months." "I'm sorry. Thank you. But that's the only regret. Everything else, I'm content. I farmed the land I loved, raised kids who are good people, saved enough to be comfortable, helped my granddaughter start farming. I did what I wanted to do, no regrets about that." Marcus envied that contentment. "I have many regrets. 2 failed marriages, alienated children, missed my son's first 13 years, worked myself to exhaustion for wealth I didn't need. If I could redo my life, I'd do it completely differently." "You can't redo it, but you can live the rest differently." "I'm trying. But I'm 50 and feel like I've wasted half my life." "Then don't waste the second half." Marcus left that evening thinking about time. Can't reclaim the past, can only change the present. He was 50, could live another 35 years if healthy. Could those 35 years redeem the first 50? The wider impact. The story of Robert and Marcus spread through their community. People heard about the old farmer withdrawing $1 million cash, the rich businessman who laughed, then learned. Some people understood, some didn't. One local journalist, Rebecca Chang, wrote an article for the Waterloo Courier in January 2025. "The farmer worth $5 million nobody knew about." The article detailed Robert's life, how he'd farmed 280 acres for 50 years, lived modestly, accumulated millions, gave $1 million to his granddaughter, contrasted with Marcus Thornton, who'd built $340 million and found misery. The article went viral, got picked up by Farm Journal, Wall Street Journal, featured on NPR. People responded in 3 ways. Response 1, the admirers. Young farmers contacted Robert asking for advice. "How do I build wealth farming? How do I know when enough is enough?" Robert answered honestly, "Farm what you can afford to own. Don't borrow unless you must. Save aggressively, live below your means, and decide what enough looks like before you start chasing." Response 2, the skeptics. Some people couldn't accept the story. Nobody saves $5 million farming 280 acres. He inherited it, or invested in crypto, or something else. They needed to believe success required luck or inheritance. The idea that discipline and patience over 50 years could build millions threatened their worldview. Response 3, the inspired. Some people, especially those chasing wealth unsuccessfully, saw themselves in Marcus, realized they were sacrificing relationships for money that wouldn't satisfy them. One email Marcus received in March 2025. Mr. Thornton, I'm 42, worth 20 million, working 90 hours weekly, barely know my kids. Read about you and Robert Hayes. You said you wished you could redo your life. I'm younger than you. I can still change. Thank you for being honest about your regrets. Marcus responded, change now, don't wait. Every day you delay is another day you can't get back. By December 2025, Robert Hayes, age 72, still farmed his 280 acres with minimal help. Still lived in his modest house, still drove his old truck, worth approximately $5.4 million. Nobody who saw him would guess. His granddaughter Emma had completed her first successful growing season, would continue farming with Robert's guidance. His legacy, 5 decades of steady farming, millions in wealth, a granddaughter starting her own journey. Marcus Thornton, age 49, had transformed his life, worked 15 hours weekly, had rebuilt relationship with his son Noah, had donated $54 million. Net worth dropped to $286 million, but happiness increased exponentially. His business continued thriving under his COO's leadership. Turned out Marcus wasn't irreplaceable. The business ran fine without him micromanaging. His legacy was still being written, but for the first time in 25 years, Marcus was writing chapters about family and peace rather than just wealth and growth. The final lesson. In December 2025, Robert and Marcus met one final time at Robert's farm. Marcus brought Noah, introduced him to Robert. Noah, this is Robert Hayes. He taught me the most important lesson of my life. Noah shook Robert's hand. What lesson? Robert smiled. I taught your father that enough is enough, that chasing wealth forever is a race you can't win, that knowing when to stop is more important than knowing how to grow. Noah understood. He'd watched his father transform over the past year, from workaholic stranger to present father. Marcus added, Robert showed me I'd built $340 million and lost everything that mattered. He'd built $5 million and kept everything that mattered. I was wealthier, but he was richer. They spent the afternoon together. Robert showed Noah around the farm, explained his philosophy. Own what you farm, save aggressively, know when enough is enough. Later, driving home, Noah asked Marcus, Dad, are you glad you met Robert? Meeting Robert saved my life. I was destroying myself chasing money. He showed me a better way. Will you keep giving money away? Yes. I don't need 300 million. I'll give most of it away over time. Keep enough to be comfortable. Give the rest to people who need it. What's enough? That's the question, Noah. For Robert, enough was 5 million. For me, maybe 20 million. Enough to never worry, but not so much I keep chasing. How do you know when you've reached enough? Robert taught me. When you have enough to never worry about money again, and you've stopped caring about getting more, you've reached enough. The old farmer who withdrew $1 million cash taught the rich man worth $340 million that knowing when to stop is worth more than knowing how to grow. Robert Hayes farmed 280 acres for 50 years, never chased expansion, built $5.4 million and found peace, gave away $1 million to his granddaughter, died eventually happy. Marcus Thornton built $340 million over 25 years, chased growth obsessively, lost everything but money, met Robert, changed course, gave away millions, found peace late. 2 different paths, same lesson. Wealth is meaningless if you don't know when enough is enough. The rich man laughed at the old farmer withdrawing $1 million cash, then got shocked when he learned the farmer was richer in every way that mattered. Sometimes the person who looks poorest is wealthiest. Sometimes the person who looks wealthiest is poorest. And sometimes $1 million in a duffel bag teaches lessons that 340 million never could. Enough is enough. Learn that young or learn it old. But learn it before you waste your entire life chasing a finish line that keeps moving. Robert Hayes learned it at 54, lived 20 years in peace. Marcus Thornton learned it at 49, had time to redeem the rest. Better late than never, but better early than late. Best of all, learn it before you start chasing. That's the lesson. That's the story. That's what $1 million in a duffel bag teaches when you're wise enough to learn. Epilogue. 3 years later, 2028. Wait, Coruscant. Final D 2025. Let me add the proper epilogue staying within 2025 timeline. Epilogue, 1 year reflection, December 2025. 1 year after the $1 million withdrawal that shocked the bank lobby and changed 2 lives, let's examine where both men stood and what their stories teach about wealth, satisfaction, and human nature. Robert Hayes, The Complete Picture. By December 2025, Robert was 72, still farming his original 280 acres, though with increasing help from younger farmers he mentored. His daily routine hadn't changed much from 50 years earlier. Wake at 5:30 a.m., coffee, check commodity prices, plan the day. What had changed was his role. Robert was no longer just farming his land. He'd become a mentor to 17 young farmers across 3 counties. Every one of them had sought him out after the Waterloo Courier article, asking the same questions. How did you do it? How do I start? Robert's advice was consistent. First, buy only what you can afford to own outright or pay off quickly. Debt is a trap. Second, live below your means. Not poverty, but modesty. New trucks don't grow crops. Third, save aggressively. 10% minimum, 20% better, 30% if possible. Fourth, know what enough looks like before you start. Write it down. When you hit it, stop chasing. Fifth, family and peace matter more than money. Protect them. Of the 17 young farmers Robert mentored, 12 were following his advice closely. 5 thought they could modify his approach. I'll borrow a little for expansion, but carefully. And were already struggling with debt service. Robert watched the 5 strugglers with concern but didn't lecture. They'll learn or they won't. Sometimes people need to fail before they listen. His granddaughter Emma was thriving. Her second growing season, 2026 crops would be planted in spring, but as of December 2025 she was preparing, looked promising. She'd saved $52,000 from her first year's net of $67,444. Planned to use that savings to buy used equipment rather than financing new. Emma's doing it right, Robert told a journalist following up on the original story. She's learning that wealth comes from what you keep, not what you earn. Robert's own wealth had grown to approximately $5.6 million by December 2025, not through farming, but through conservative investment returns. His living expenses remained around $18,000 annually. His investment income was roughly $168,000. He gave away $140,000 in 2025 to various causes and family members. When asked if he regretted not expanding his farm, not chasing growth, not building an empire, Robert was unequivocal. No, I had exactly the life I wanted. Farmed land I loved, made enough money, enjoyed the process. Many farmers with 10 times my acres can't say that. Marcus Thornton, the redemption arse. Marcus's transformation continued through 2025. By December, he'd reduced work hours to 10 per week, consulting role only, rebuilt substantial relationship with son Noah, donated $71 million total to various causes, reduced net worth from $340 million to $269 million through donations, started dating a woman named Lisa, a school teacher who didn't care about his wealth, began teaching business ethics at University of Iowa as adjunct professor. The teaching position was particularly meaningful. Marcus used his own story as a cautionary tale. I built $340 million and nearly destroyed my life. I sacrificed family, health, relationships. For what? numbers in a bank account. Don't be me. Learn this lesson cheaper than I did. Students were captivated. Here was someone who'd achieved the American dream, vast wealth, admitting it was hollow without other life elements. One student asked, "Mr. Thornton, if you could go back to age 25 when you started your business, what would you do differently?" Marcus thought carefully. "I'd still start the business, but I'd define success differently. I'd say, I want to build a company that generates 5 million in annual net income, provides good jobs, serves customers well. Once I hit that, I'd maintain it rather than grow it. I'd work 30 hours per week instead of 80. I'd be present for my families. I'd know that 5 million in income annually was enough. But you built a company generating way more than 5 million annually. Isn't that success?" "It's financial success. But life success? No. I lost 2 marriages, barely know my son, worked myself to exhaustion, missed everything that mattered. Financial success without life success is failure." Marcus's relationship with his son Noah had become the center of his life. By December 2025, they had dinner together 3 times weekly, attended soccer games together, took monthly weekend trips. Noah's mother, Michelle, had softened her stance. She saw genuine change in Marcus, not just performance. Noah told his mother, "Dad's different now. He actually listens, asks about my life, shows up. I think he's finally figured out what matters." Michelle remained cautiously optimistic, but acknowledged, "He's been consistent for over a year. That's longer than I expected. Maybe he's serious about changing." Marcus had also become close friends with Robert Hayes. They met monthly for coffee, discussed farming, business, philosophy. Their friendship was unlikely, the old farmer and the former workaholic CEO, but profound. In one conversation in November 2025, Marcus asked Robert, "Do you think I can redeem the first half of my life? Or is it just lost?" Robert answered, "You can't redeem it, can't change it, can't get back the time you lost. But you can make the second half meaningful. The question isn't whether you wasted the first 50 years, you did. The question is whether you'll waste the next 30. I'm trying not to. I know, and you're succeeding. But Marcus, understand something. You'll always carry regret. You'll always wish you'd learned this lesson 25 years earlier. That's the cost of your education. Accept it. Don't let it paralyze you." Marcus found wisdom in that acceptance. Yes, he'd wasted decades. Yes, he'd destroyed relationships. Yes, he'd learned late. But he was learning. Better late than never. The broader impact of their story, the story of Robert Hayes and Marcus Thornton, resonated far beyond Iowa. By December 2025, the original Waterloo Courier article had been reprinted or referenced in Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Farm Journal, NPR's All Things Considered, Harvard Business Review, case study on knowing when enough is enough. Several personal finance blogs and podcasts, the response divided into predictable camps. Camp 1. The inspired people who recognized themselves in Marcus's story, chasing wealth at expense of life, and decided to change course. Robert and Marcus both received hundreds of emails from people saying some version of, "Your story woke me up. I was becoming you, Marcus. I'm changing direction." Camp 2. The defensive people heavily invested in the wealth chase who rejected the story's lesson. Marcus is weak, gave up. Real winners never stop pushing. These were typically people who hadn't yet built significant wealth but believed they would if they just worked harder. Camp 3. The envious people who resented both men. Resented Robert for building wealth just by farming. Resented Marcus for having wealth to give away. These were people who'd struggled financially and needed to believe success was luck or unfair rather than examining their own choices. But the largest group was Camp 4, the reflective, people who read the story and ask themselves, what does enough look like for me? When will I stop chasing? This reflection led to measurable changes. Several business publications reported in late 2025 that more executives were pursuing lifestyle design rather than wealth maximization, intentionally limiting work hours and income in favor of time and relationships. Some economists worried this trend could slow economic growth. Others argued it was healthier, that an economy based on sustainable satisfaction rather than endless growth might be more stable. Robert's final philosophy. In December 2025, at age 72, Robert gave an interview to Farm Journal magazine's podcast. The host asked, "Robert, you've become famous for knowing when enough was enough. How did you know?" Robert's answer, "I asked myself, what do I actually want from life? I wanted to farm land I loved, wanted to provide well for my family, wanted security and peace. Once I could do those things, adding more money didn't add more happiness. So I stopped chasing money and started enjoying life." But many farmers think they need to expand constantly to survive. Some do need to expand. If you're renting land at high rates, expansion might reduce per-acre costs. But I owned my land, had no debt. My costs were minimal. Expanding would have added complexity and stress without adding happiness. Do you think young farmers can replicate your approach today with land at $4,000 per acre? Not exactly, but the principle applies. Buy only what you can afford. If that's 80 acres, buy 80 acres, farm it well, save aggressively. In 10 years, buy another 80 acres, build slowly without debt. It's harder than it was in 1974, but it's possible. What's your advice to young people chasing wealth? Define what enough looks like before you start chasing. Write it down. A specific number. For me, it was enough to own my land, generate 50,000 annual income, have security. When I hit that, I knew, if you don't define enough, you'll chase forever. Marcus's final reflection. Marcus also gave interviews in late 2025. Business Insider asked, "Marcus, you've given away $71 million this year. Do you regret earning it in the first place?" Marcus answered, "No. I regret how I earned it, the relationships I destroyed, the time I wasted. But the money itself I don't regret because now I can do good with it. If I could go back, I'd earn 20 million instead of 340 million and do it in 30 hours per week instead of 80. But I can't go back. So I'll give away most of the 340 and try to help others avoid my mistakes." Are you happier now, making less and working less? Immeasurably happier. I make $0 now. I don't take salary anymore. Work 10 hours per week. Spend time with my son, volunteer, teach. Date a wonderful woman who loves me for me, not my money. I'm happier than I've been in 30 years. What would you tell your 25-year-old self starting your business? Define success before you build. I never did. I just kept growing because that's what you do. But growth for growth's sake is cancer. Define what success looks like. X dollars in revenue, Y hours per week, Z quality of life. Hit that. Stop. Maintain. Enjoy. I didn't. I built 340 million and nearly died empty. Don't be me. The Christmas Gathering, December 2025. On December 23, 2025, Robert hosted a Christmas gathering at his farm, invited his 2 children and their families, his granddaughter Emma, Marcus Thornton, and his son Noah, 6 of the young farmers he'd mentored, Dan Fletcher, the bank manager who'd witnessed the $1 million withdrawal, 23 people total in Robert's modest farmhouse. Crowded, warm, full of laughter. Robert stood to make a toast. This year taught me that the best investment I ever made wasn't land or stocks. It was living within my means and knowing when enough was enough. That investment gave me this: family, friends, peace. That's wealth. Everything else is just money. Marcus added, Robert taught me that lesson this year. Cost me 71 million in donations and reduction in work to learn it. But it was the cheapest education I ever bought. Because what I gained, relationship with my son, peace, purpose, is worth more than all the money I ever made. Noah, now 14, spoke up. Grandpa Robert, my dad says you changed his life by making him realize he was rich but poor. Thank you for that. I got my dad back because of you. The room was silent, emotional. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone. Robert, uncomfortable with attention, deflected. I just told my story. Marcus did the hard work of changing, but I'm glad I could help. After dinner, Robert and Marcus stood outside in the cold December air, looking at the stars. Marcus said, Robert, I've been thinking about legacy. What do I leave behind? A company that'll be sold when I die? Money that'll be donated? What's my legacy? Robert thought. Your legacy is being written now. It's your son. It's the people you help with donations. It's the students you teach. It's not the money you made. It's what you do with your remaining years. What's your legacy? Emma, she's farming because I helped her start. The young farmers I've mentored. The example I set, that you can farm small and live well. That's enough for me. They stood in silence, watching stars. Two men who'd taken different paths to the same truth. Knowing when enough is the secret to wealth and peace. The old farmer who withdrew $1 million cash shocked the rich man worth $340 million. Not with the money. With the lesson that followed, that enough is enough, that peace beats wealth, that family beats empire, that knowing when to stop is more important than knowing how to grow. Robert Hayes built 5.6 million farming, 280 acres over 50 years, found peace at 54, gave away millions to help others, died eventually surrounded by family who loved him. Marcus Thornton built 340 million in 25 years, found misery and emptiness, met Robert, changed course at 49, gave away millions, rebuilt relationships, found peace late but found it. Two different paths, same destination, same lesson. Enough is enough. Learn it young or old, but learn it. Before you waste your life chasing finish lines that keep moving, before you sacrifice everything for numbers that mean nothing, before you become Marcus at 49, realizing you've built wealth and lost life. Or better, become Robert at 29. Know enough when you see it. Stop chasing, start living. Farm 280 acres, save millions, find peace. That's wealth, real wealth, the kind that matters. The rich man laughed at the old farmer. The old farmer taught the rich man. The lesson was simple but profound. Enough is enough. Everything else is just details.